Hi and welcome to a journey through Biblical Greek. Today we are looking at chapter 8 where we're looking at the Greek verb grammar. And this is where we start going into details on the Greek verbs. But before we look at the verb grammar, let's look at a review of what we've looked at so far. We have talked about nouns, and we said nouns are built on two things. Every time you look at a noun word, there are two things. You have the stem and the case ending. And we said the case ending tells you three things. It tells you the gender of the word, whether it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. It tells you the number of the word, whether it's singular or plural. It tells you the case of the word, whether it's nominative, genitive, dative, or in short, it's telling you the role the noun is playing in the sentence. And then we looked at Introduction to Greek Verbs, where we saw that verbs have five things. It tells you the voice, tells you the number, tells you the person, has tense, and has mood. And on the voice, we said the voice shows the person who is affected by the action. And we said there are three kinds of voice. We have active voice, middle voice, and passive. We said active voice is when the subject is doing the action. We said middle voice is when the subject is doing the action on himself or for himself. And passive voice is when the subject is receiving the action. A verbal ending, we said, gives you the number also. And on number, we're talking about whether the word is singular or plural. We also looked at person, where we said person shows who is doing the action. And we said that a verb in the first person shows that the speaker is the one doing the action. We said a verb in the second person shows that the listener is the one doing the action. A verb in the third person shows that the third person or the person being spoken about is the one doing the action. Not the speaker and not the listener, but another third party or another third person doing the action. So there are three kinds of person: first person, second person, and third person. We also looked at tense, and we said tense refers to the kind of action, not just the time. And we said there are 6 tenses in the Greek. We have present tense, imperfect tense, aorist tense, perfect tense, future tense, pluperfect tense. And lastly, among the things that the verb ending tells you, it tells you the mood of the verb. And we said mood shows the attitude of the speaker. We said there are 3 kinds of mood. There is indicative mood, subjunctive mood, and imperative mood. Our concern at this point in our study in Greek 1 is the indicative mood, which is by far the most used mood in the New Testament. The New Testament has over 15,000 verbs in the indicative mood, as compared to subjunctive mood, which is only having 2,000, and the imperative mood, which is also having 2,000. So when you're looking at the indicative mood, you're looking at the bigger part of the New Testament. So in Greek 1, we're going to focus on the indicative mode. Then we also looked at conjugation. Remember, we said declension deals with nouns, but conjugation deals with verbs. And just a reminder, what is conjugation? To conjugate a verb means to show how it changes form in order to express person, number, tense, voice, and mood. So when you're conjugating a verb, you're showing how the verb changes its form to express person, number, tense, voice, and mood. So this is what we've looked at so far up to now. Let's go into chapter 8 as we look at the Greek verbal grammar. Now we said that in Greek 1 we're going to look at the indicative mood, and the indicative mood has 6 tenses. We said you have the present tense, imperfect, future, aorist, perfect, pluperfect. And right now in Greek 1 we are only going to focus on the present tense and future tense. All these other tenses are going to be seen in Greek 2. So let's look at how tenses work. Let's look at this chart. Let's say you're in the now, in the present, where you're standing between the past time and the present and future time. Greek divides the 6 tenses into 2 parts. You have primary endings on the right and secondary endings on the left. Primary endings represent present and future time, the present time and the future time, while secondary endings represent past time. So the vertical line in the middle represents the present moment, now. So when you're standing on the now, Greek divides tenses into 2 parts. You have the primary endings on the right and secondary endings on the left. So everything to the left is past time and everything to the right is present or future time. This means that Greek tenses are not just about the time, but about how action is viewed. Also notice that secondary endings add the e argument. We're going to go into details on this in Greek 2, But the E argument signals to the reader that the verb you're looking at shows action that happened earlier in the past. The E argument is more like the English ED that is added at the end of the word to show that this is past time. For example, walked. You have ED at the end to show that this is past time. So Greek adds the E argument at the beginning of the word to show that this is past time. So all the tenses that are falling under the secondary endings add the E argument. These are tenses like the imperfect tense, the aorist tense, the perfect tense, and the pluperfect. Now, when you look at the past tenses, the first one is the imperfect tense, where you have a line with an arrow that is continuing, showing an ongoing action in the past. For example, if you say, he was teaching, the arrow there, the action that is presented there, shows a continuous action. It means that the teacher was teaching continuously. The teacher was teaching for some time. But when you reach the aorist tense, it's just a dot, showing simple occurrence or an event where the author is not showing the time or the duration of the event. For example, it's like saying he taught. The aorist tense will not tell you how the action happened, just that it happened. Also, there is the perfect tense, where you have the dot and an arrow that is leading into the present time. And this shows the completed action in the past, but the arrow that is going into the present shows that the perfect tense presents an action that is completed in the past, but the results continue in the present. And then you have the pluperfect, which we'll not focus on because it's less common in Greek. So these are the tenses that are falling under secondary endings, the tenses that have to do with past time. And then on the right side, you have primary endings. And on the primary endings, you only have two tenses. You have the present tense and the future tense. And so Greek uses primary endings for the future tense as well as the present tense. For the primary endings, there is no E argument because E argument shows that the action happened in the past. So we don't add the E argument on primary endings. So when you're looking at the present tense, you have the arrow that is continuing, meaning the present tense shows a continuous action happening now. For example, he is teaching. And then you have the future tense, where you have the line with an arrow that is starting now and going forward, showing an action that will occur. For example, he will teach. The action is not now, but the action will start in the future. So this is how Greek looks at the tenses. You have secondary tenses and primary tenses. Let's start by looking at the present tense. And on the present tense, we'll start by looking at the present active indicative. Remember, in Greek 1, we'll be looking at the indicative mood. And so we're starting to look at the present tense in active voice, the pie chart or the pie paradigm, meaning present active indicative. Let's start by looking at how verbs are formed in the present tense. So just like the nouns, the present tense has two things. When you're forming a verb in the present tense, there are two things to consider. You have the tense stem or the stem of the word or the stem of the verb, and you have the personal ending. For example, you have the word luomen. In the word luomen, lu is the stem and omen is the ending. And so every verb has two things. You have the stem of the verb and the ending of the verb. When you combine these two, you are creating a verb. And this applies for every tense among the 6 tenses that we looked at. So you have the stem of the verb and the ending of the verb. The stem of the verb tells you the meaning. For example, lu. When you look at the vocabulary, lu means loose or loosen. But when you add the ending tells you details like person, number, tense, voice, or mood of the verb. Let's look at another example. You have the word aquamen. Aquamen. In the word aquamen, you have two things again. You have the stem, which is aquo, and you have the ending, which is omen. In this case, aquo, which is the stem, means here. And the ending, which is omen, gives you the details like person, number, tense, voice, mood. So when you bring the two, you have aquamen. And aquamen means we hear. So the stem of the word gives you the meaning, but the verb ending or the personal ending is going to tell you who is doing the action. For example, aquo, the stem, means hear. Omen means we. So when you bring the two, the translation is we hear, and this is how you form verbs. And so let's look at the personal ending and the paradigm for the present active indicative. So this is the paradigm for the present active indicative. The paradigm is very, very important to know, so you must master it. I'll be giving you songs on how to master the paradigms for the verbs, and so these songs are meant to help you master the paradigm easily and know it by heart. You can follow me and learn the song. So here is the song for the present active indicative. First of all, on the paradigm, you have o, eis, ei, omen, ete, usin. Again, you have o, es, ei, omen, ete, usin. So here's the song. O, es, ei, omen, ete, usin. O, es, ei, omen, ete, usin. O, es, ei, omen, ete, usin. That's the song. Keep repeating it until you know the song. The song is going to help you master the paradigm. And so as we are looking at how verbs are formed in the present active indicative following the paradigm, here are some points to take note of. In Greek, you always build verbs this way, by attaching the stem of the word to the endings. And so as you can see, the stem is the same, but the endings are different. And so to form verbs, you always attach the stem to the different endings in the singular as well as the plural. And so here you have luo, lueis, luei, luomen, luete, lusin. Remember the song? O, es, ei, omen, ete, usin. O, es, ei, omen, ete, usin. So let's look at how to conjugate verbs. But remember the points that we said? When you put together the stem and the ending, you get a complete word that tells you who is doing the action and when. For example, in the first person singular, you have the word grapho. You have graph, which is the stem, and you have omega, o, which is the ending. Together it's grapho. Graph means right. The omega means I. When you put them together, you have grapho, which means I am writing or I write. So when you bring the stem and the ending together, it tells you who is doing the action and when. But let me share with you the steps on how you can conjugate a verb. And just a reminder, what is conjugation? To conjugate a verb means to show how it changes form in order to express person, number, tense, voice, and mood. So when you're conjugating a verb, you're showing how the verb changes its form to express person, number, tense, voice, and mood. And here's a very, very important point. When you're given to conjugate a verb, it will always be given in the first person singular. So if you're in the present tense, it will be given in the first person singular, present active indicative. Or if they want you to conjugate it in the middle, it will be given in the first person singular, present middle indicative. If they want you to conjugate it in the passive, it's going to be given in the first person singular, present passive indicative. So they're going to always guide you on three things: the tense to use, the voice to use, and the mood to use. And remember that all the words that are found on the vocabulary are from the first person singular. For example, you have the word grapho, and this is how it appears on the vocabulary. Grapho means I am writing or I write. So let me share with you 4 steps on how you can conjugate verbs. 4 easy to follow steps on how verbs are conjugated. Number 1, if you're taught to conjugate the word grapho, and as I said, they're going to give you the tense, the voice, and the mood to conjugate grapho in. They're going to guide you, like conjugate the word grapho in the present active indicative. So that's the first step that you do. You identify the required tense, voice, and mood. Step number 2, you find the stem. How do you find the stem? When you remove the omega, the o, that o, for example on grapho, when you remove that o, what you're remaining with is the stem. So step number 2 is to remove the stem from the ending. And so there the stem is graph. Step number 3 is to add the correct personal endings to the stem. For example, if they want you to conjugate the word grapho in the present active indicative, it means that you're going to use the paradigm that I was sharing. O-S-A, omen ete usin. And those are the endings that you'll be adding on the stem. Remember, you're going to maintain the stem, but keep adding different endings, both in the singular and in the plural. For example, in the first person singular, you have omega added to graph. In the second person singular, you have ace added to graph. In the third person, you have a added to graph. And that is in the singular. When you come to the plural, first person you have omen, that is added to the stem. Then you have ete, that is added to the stem. And you have usin, which is added to the stem. So you have O-S-A, omen, ete, usin. And each ending is translated in a different way. So step number 1, identify the tense, the voice, and the mood that is required. Step number 2, find the stem, separate the stem from the ending, because you want to remain with the stem where you'll be attaching the different endings, depending on the voice that is given. Step number 3, we said that you add the correct endings to the stem. And step number 4 is, after you have attached the stem to the different endings, you need to translate each form. For example, you have grapho, which means I write. And in the second person singular, you have graphes, which means you write or you are writing. In the third person, you have graphe, which means he or she or it writes. And now you have he or she or it, but when you're translating a passage, the context will guide you whether we're talking about a male, a female, or a neuter. So if it's male, your translation becomes he writes. If it's feminine, the translation becomes she writes. If the word is in neuter, the translation becomes it writes. But when you're conjugating, you have to show he or she or it, because you don't have the context to guide you. So third person singular, you have graphe, which means he or she or it writes. First person plural, you have graphomen, which means we write or we are writing. Remember, these are translations in the present tense, so the action is happening now. So it's we write or we are writing. Second person plural, you have graphete, which means you write or you are writing in the plural. Third person plural, you have graphosine, which means they write or they are writing. So after you have attached the endings, you need to translate the forms that you have created. Minus the translations, marks are going to be deducted. And you need to practice how to conjugate the words following the steps that are given. So again, step number 1, if you are taught to conjugate a verb, identify the tense, the voice, and the mood that is required. And make sure you use the correct endings for that tense and voice as you are attaching the endings to the stem. Step number 2, find the stem by removing the omega, because all the words are going to be given in the first person singular, meaning there will be omega attached to the stem. So remove the omega and remain with the stem. Then step number 3, add the correct endings to the stem. Maintain the stem, but change the endings. Step number 4 is to translate each form that you have created. Remember, every conjugation must have these details. It must show the tense, the voice, and the person that you are using to conjugate. For example, here you have grapho that you are conjugating in the present active indicative, the present tense, active voice, indicative mode. And then the fourth one is the number. For example, here, so you have singular endings and plural endings. The last one is the translation that you need to show. After you have attached the endings, translate the forms. And by doing this, you would have conjugated the word grapho. So this is how you conjugate a verb, by following the 4 steps that are given. Let's look at another example. If you're taught to conjugate the word akuo, and the guide given there is that we need to conjugate the word akuo in the present active indicative. So this is how you conjugate the word akuo. First of all, you identify the tense, the voice, and the mood, which is the present tense, active voice, indicative mode. And these are the endings that have been attached there. You have o, sa, omen, ete, usin. These are endings for the present active indicative. Soon we'll be looking at the present midu indicative, but these endings are the ones for present active indicative, the song that I shared. So the stem, you have aku, and the endings are these that are highlighted. So you have akuo, akues, akuei, akuomen, akuete, akusin. And the translations are, in the first person you have I hear, or you can translate it to mean I am hearing. Both are the present tense. Second person you have akues, meaning you hear or you are hearing. Third person singular you have akue, meaning he or she or it is hearing or he or she or it hears. First person plural you have akuomen, meaning we hear or we are hearing. Second person plural you have akuete, meaning you hear or you are hearing. Third person plural you have akusin, meaning they hear or they are hearing. So this is how you conjugate the word akuo in the present active indicative. If you are taught to conjugate the word luo in the present active indicative, remember you always be given tense to use, what voice to use, what mood to use. So here you have the present active indicative. So this is how you conjugate it. It will be luo, lues, luei, luomen, luete, luusin. And by the way, luo means I lose. So the translation should be luo, which means I am losing. Lues, you are losing. Luei, in the third person, you have he or she or it is losing. Luomen, you have we are losing. These are now plural. Luete, you are losing. Third person, you have losing, which means they are losing. Again, how do you conjugate? By identifying the stem, which is lu. You can see you have the stem there or the base, which is the same, but the endings are different. You attach the stem to the endings, and then after you have attached, you translate. This is how you conjugate the verb. And this applies to any tense that you're given. But the only key is that you have to use the endings for the voice that they have told you to use. If the voice is middle, you have to go to the middle endings. If the voice is passive, you use the passive endings. If the voice is active, as in this case, you use these endings. O-S-A, omen ete usin. So this is how you conjugate the word luo. Now let's look at passing. How do you pass a verb? So what is to pass a word? To pass a word means to identify its grammatical details. Grammatical details of the word are things like the case, the tense, the voice. So you identify its grammatical details, give its lexical form. Now lexical form, we are talking about the dictionary form, how it appears on the vocabulary. That's what we mean by lexical form. And after you have identified those things, you provide its meaning in context. So in a nutshell, when you're taught to pass a word means to identify its grammatical details. Things like the case, the gender, the voice, the number, the person. Now, a very important point, passing refers to both nouns and verbs, including pronouns. So when you're taught to pass a word, it can be a noun or it can be a verb. So what are the steps you can use to pass a word? For example, if you're taught to pass the word legete, the example that is given there, legete. Step number 1, identify the part of speech for the word you're given. By part of speech, we mean identify whether the word you're given is a noun, or it's a verb, or it's a pronoun, or it's an adjective. Because when passing, you can be given a noun, or a verb, or a pronoun, or an adjective. So step number 1, identify the part of speech. Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it a pronoun? Is it an adjective? Step number 2, use the ending to gather the details. For example, if it's a noun, then you need to give its gender, case, and number. When you're giving details about nouns, you only give 3 things: the gender, the case, and the number. But if it's a verb, then you need to give 5 things: the tense, the voice, the mood, the person, and the number. I want to repeat, if the word you're given is a noun, nouns only have gender, case, or number. Nouns don't have the tense, the voice, the mood, the person. But if it's a verb, verbs have 5 things: tense, voice, mood, person, and number. Verbs do not have gender and case. Verbs have number, but verbs do not have gender and case. Gender and case refer to nouns. So, what are the steps to follow when you're passing? Step number 1, identify the part of speech. Is the word you're given a noun or a verb or a pronoun? Step number 2, use the ending to gather the details. If it's a verb, give the 5 details that are required: the tense, the voice, the mood, the person, the number. After you have identified the word to be a noun or a verb, and you have given the relevant information, then you translate the word that you're given. For example, in this case, you translate the word legete. Now let's look at this word and see how we can pass it. Number 1, we need to identify the part of speech for this word, legete. By looking at the ending is epsilon tau epsilon, ete. The ending is ete, and ete is an ending that is found on the present tense, the present active indicative. Ete is found in the active voice, on the plural, in the second person. You have osa, omen ete, usin. So ete is found in the active voice, on the plural, in the second person. That's where legete is coming from. So because it's coming from this paradigm, the part of speech is a verb, because we're looking at the present active indicative, which is a paradigm for verbs. So number 1, we have identified the part of speech, it's a verb. Number 2, we need to give its relevant information. Since it's a verb, verbs have 5 key things. Verbs have tense, voice, mood, person, and number. So we need to give those 5 details. Let's start with the tense. The tense is present tense because legete is using the present tense paradigm or the present tense ending, which is ete. Again, we are using the personal ending to give all these 5 details. Number 2, the voice is active voice because legete is using active voice ending. You have osa, omen ete, usin. So that ete is coming from the active voice. So the voice for legete, for the word legete, is active voice. Number 3, the mood is indicative. For now, the mood will always be indicative. I want to repeat, as long as we are within Greek 1, the mood will always be indicative. Whether you're looking at the present tense or the future tense, the mood will always be indicative. So the mood for legete is the indicative mood. And then the person, to find the person, you need to look at the paradigm. Person can be first person, second person, or third person. So you look at where the ending is coming from. So the person is second person because ete is a second person ending. And then finally, you have number. Number refers to whether the word is coming from singular endings or plural endings. The ending, which is ete, is coming from plural endings. And so we have found the 5 key things: the tense, which is present tense, the voice, which is active voice, the mood, which is indicative, the person, which is second person, and the number, which is plural. So how do you translate? How do you translate this word? The translation is based from the details that you have provided, the 5 key details that you have provided. So we said the tense is present, so in your translation, it has to show that the tense is present. Then the voice is active, so in your translation, it has to show that the voice is active. The mood is indicative, it has to show the person is second person, it has to show. For second person, the translation is you. Remember, first person you translate it as I am doing this. Second person is you are doing this in the present tense. Third person is you say he or she or it is doing this. That is for the singular. But when you get to the plural, the translation for the first person plural is we are doing this because you're in the plural. Second person plural is you are doing this. Third person plural is they are doing this. So that's how you translate. But let's get to legete. How do you actually translate the word legete? So since it's coming from second person plural in the active voice, and we know that the stem leg, which is coming from the word lego, which means to speak. So it becomes you are speaking. Lego means I speak from the vocabulary. But since it's legete, using a plural ending in the second person active voice, the translation is you are speaking. You are speaking. Second person is translated as you. So it's you are speaking. So that's the translation. How do you give the lexical form? Lexical form is how the word appears on the vocabulary. Here's a tip. To find the lexical form, Just remove the ending from the word and attach omega, O. So it becomes lego. And that is the lexical form. That is how it appears on the vocabulary. So that is how you pass the word legete. And that is how you pass any given verb, by following the 4 steps. Step number 1, identify the part of speech. Is it a noun, a verb, or a pronoun? That question can only be answered by looking at the verb ending. Step number 2, use the ending to gather the details that are needed. If it's a noun, you look at the gender, the case, or the number. If it's a verb, you give the details like tense, voice, mood, person, or number. Third step, you translate the word that is given depending on the information you have given. Fourth step, you give the lexical form, how it appears on the vocabulary. So this is how you pass the word or pass any given verb, by following the 4 easy steps. For example, how do you pass the word luo? Luo. So this is how you pass the word luo. When you're looking at luo, which is the first word there, the tense is present, the voice is active, the mood is indicative, the person is first person, and the number is singular. The translation is I lose, because luo from the vocabulary means I lose. What about if you're told to pass the word lues? If you're told to pass the word lues, you are giving details about the word lues. So you look at the ending and look at where the ending is coming from the paradigm. So here's how you pass the word lues. The tense is present, active voice, indicative mood, second person, singular. The translation is you are losing. How do you pass the word lue? How do you give its details, its key information? You pass the word lue by looking at the ending. The tense is present, the voice is active, the mood is indicative, the person is third person, and the number is singular. And the translation is he or she or it is losing. Because the tense is present, you say he or she or it is losing. So these are just examples on how you pass verbs that you're given. Remember to translate the word that you're given after you've passed the word. So we have looked at the present active indicative. Now I want to look at the present middle and passive indicative. So there are 2 things there. We'll look at the present middle indicative and look at the present passive indicative. So here's a paradigm on the present tense. The present tense has 3 voices like any other tense. You have the active voice with its endings, and we've already looked at the active voice. That's why you have the song O-S-A, Omen Ete Usin. And now we want to look at the middle or passive voice. For other tenses, the middle voice has separate endings and the passive voice has separate endings. But for the present tense, the middle and passive voices share the endings. They have the same endings, which makes it even easier to know the endings or to know the paradigm for the middle and passive voice. So far we've looked at the active voice and the endings. We want to look at the middle voice and passive voice and their endings, so that we can be able to pass the words that are given in the middle or passive, or conjugate the words in middle or passive. So here is the paradigm for the present middle and passive indicative. Remember I said that the middle and the passive are sharing the same endings. The active voice is separate, it's having its own endings, but when you come to the middle, the present middle and passive indicative, the endings are the same. But very important, how you translate them is different. How you translate the middle is different from how you translate the passive voice. We'll be looking at that shortly. But let's look at the paradigm. So you have omai, you have a, you have etai, and these are singular endings. In the plural, you have ometha, este, and ontai. So let's know this paradigm by learning the song. Now to learn the song for the present middle passive paradigm, we're going to use the word luo. On the endings for the middle and passive voice, we're going to add the stem lu to know the song. So here's the song. Luo mai, lue lue tai. Luo mai, lue lue tai. Luo metha, lue stem. Luo metha, lue stem. luon tai ai ai, luo mai, lue tai, luo mai, lue tai, luo metha, lueste, luo metha, lueste, luon tai ai ai. That's a song that you need to know and master quickly the present, middle, and passive paradigm. For the sake of knowing how to translate the middle voice and the passive voice, we're going to separate them. The endings are the same, but the translation is different. So let's look at the present middle indicative. Let's look at the middle voice. On the middle voice, when you attach the middle voice endings, you're going to have luomai, lue, luetai, luometha, lueste, luontai. So how do you translate the middle voice? Remember, there are three voices. You have active voice, meaning the subject is doing the action. That's why in the active voice, our translation was, I am loosing, meaning the person who is speaking is the one doing the action. But in the middle voice, when we're defining middle voice, we said that the middle voice is where the subject is doing the action on themselves. So how do you translate middle voice? Let's look at the paradigm. In the first person singular, you have luomai, and the translation is, I am loosing myself. The subject is doing the action for themselves or on themselves. I am loosing myself. In second person singular, you have luei. Translation is, you are loosing yourself. You are loosing yourself. Third person, you have luetai. Translation is, he or she or it is loosing himself or herself or itself. You have to show all those things when you're translating. In the first person plural, you have luometha. The translation is, we are loosing ourselves. Remember, this is now plural, these are singular, and these are plural endings. So the translation should show even the number aspect. If it's singular, the translation should be singular. If it's plural, the translation should be plural. So you have luometha, meaning we are loosing ourselves. In the second person plural, you have lueste, meaning you are loosing yourselves. In the third person plural, you have luontai, meaning they are loosing themselves. So this is how you translate middle. Middle always has that reflexive voice, ourselves, himself, myself, because the subject is doing the action on themselves or for themselves. Let's look at the passive voice. In the present passive indicative, for the same example, luo, how do you translate the passive voice? As you can see, the way you conjugate the word is the same, there's the same endings, but because it's passive voice, the way you translate the word is different. For example, first person singular, you have luomai, and the translation, remember the passive voice? The passive voice is where the subject is being acted upon. The subject is receiving the action. The subject is not doing the action, but the subject is receiving the action. So there's a difference between the active voice, middle voice, and passive voice. So here's the translation. Here's how you translate the passive voice. In the first person singular, you have luomai. Since the subject is receiving the action, the translation is going to be, I am being loosed. In the second person singular, you have luei. Translation is, you are being loosed. Third person singular is luetai. Translation is going to be, he or she or it is being loosed. In the first person plural, you have luometha. Translation is going to be, we are being loosed. We, because it's plural. Second person plural is lueste. Translation is going to be, you are being loosed. In the third person plural, you have luontai. The translation is going to be, they are being loosed. So this is how you translate the passive voice. The subject is just receiving the action. So these are the middle or passive endings. You need to know this and master them. Remember the song and use that to learn the paradigm and know it by heart. Without this paradigm, you can't pass the words that are in middle or passive voice. You can't conjugate the words that are in middle or passive voice. You can't translate the words that are in middle or passive voice. You can't identify the key information about the verbs that are in middle or passive voice. So the paradigm is very important. So let's look at an example in middle or passive voice. on how you can pass a word that is in mid or passive voice. Remember we said passing can refer to nouns or to verbs or to adjectives or to pronouns. So when you're given a word to pass, you need to first of all identify the part of speech. So there are 4 steps to passing a word. Step number 1, identify the part of speech. Is the word that you're looking at a noun, a verb, or a pronoun, or an adjective? Remember, so far we have looked at nouns, verbs, pronouns, and adjectives. And we've looked at the paradigm for nouns. If the ending is that of a noun paradigm, then the word you're looking at is a noun. If the ending is coming from the verb paradigm, maybe the present tense or the future tense, then the word you're looking at is a verb. But if the ending is coming from the pronoun paradigm, and we've already looked at the pronoun paradigm, if the ending is coming from the pronoun paradigm, then the word you're looking at is a pronoun. If the ending you're looking at is coming from an adjective paradigm, and we've looked at adjective paradigm, then the word you're looking at is an adjective. So step number 1, identify the part of speech. Step number 2, after you have identified that the word is a noun or the word is a verb, step number 2, use the ending to gather the details that are needed. And it's very important that by now, you know the noun paradigm, you know the pronoun paradigm, you know how to identify an adjective, and you know the verb paradigm. And on the verbs, so far we have looked at the present tense. Under the present tense, we have looked at active voice paradigm. We have looked at mid paradigm, which is sharing the same endings with the passive. So all these paradigms, you need to know them by heart, because without knowing them, you can't tell a word by looking at the ending, whether it's noun or a pronoun or an adjective or a verb. So remember, there are 4 steps to follow when you're passing. Identify the part of speech, give the details, translate, and give the lexical form. So let's try to pass this word, legetai. By looking at the ending is etai. The ending tells me that it's coming from the mid or passive voice. Remember that song that I gave you? Luomai, lue lue tai, luometha, lueste, luontayayay, luomai, lue lue tai. There's that etai at the end. That etai is in the 3rd person singular. So when you know that song, it's going to help you a lot on the verbs. So because I've known the paradigm, I can tell that etai is coming from the mid or passive voice. That word is a verb. So if it's a verb, the tense is present tense because it's coming from the paradigm for the present tense. The voice is midu because it's coming from the midu paradigm. But at the same time, the voice is also passive. So on the voice, I can choose whether to put midu voice or passive voice because the midu and the passive are sharing endings. On the mood, as I said it, for now, as long as you're still doing Greek 1, the mood will always be indicative. When you're writing the information, the mood will always be indicative. And the person is 3rd person. The number is singular because it's coming from 3rd person singular on the paradigm. Now, because it's a verb, you're not going to give its gender or its case. As I said it, verbs do not have gender or case. Then after you've given these 5 things, you come to the lexical form. How does this word appear on the vocabulary? Remove the ending, attach omega on the stem, and what you have is lego. And that is its lexical form. That is how it appears on the vocabulary. What is the translation or meaning of this word, legetai? Since the number is singular and the person is 3rd person, the translation becomes he or she or it is speaking, or he or she or it speaks. So that is how you pass the word legetai. Let's do some warm-up on translation. Let's try to translate some sentences by using the information that we have looked at so far from the first lecture to the lecture that we are looking at, from nouns all the way to verbs. Remember, translation is involving, so it requires knowledge of all the paradigms that we have looked at so far. Paradigms are very, very important to helping you translate. You need to practice and follow how translations are made. So let's look at these few examples that we have. And in starting, we're going to look at active voice examples. These are present tense active voice examples. So the first sentence we have, blepomen yesun. Blepomen yesun. How do you translate this sentence? Blepomen yesun. First of all, when you're looking at these sentences, word by word, you need to identify the part of speech. So the thing that will help you when you're translating is passing. You need to pass each word for you to translate the word. You need to pass it. You need to tell where a word is coming from on the paradigm for you to translate it correctly. So when you're looking at blepomen, blepomen is having the ending omen. Omen is coming from present tense active voice. So that ending there will tell you that blepomen is coming from the first person plural in the active voice. So the translation is, since blep means see, so blepomen means we are seeing. Now Jesus is Christ. So the translation of that sentence is, we are seeing Christ, or we see Christ. It's in the present tense. We are seeing Christ, or we see Christ. So you can tell that for you to translate a sentence, you need the information, you need knowledge of the paradigm, both on the nouns and on the verbs. Sentence number 2, you have blepes ton anthropon. Blepes ton anthropon. Now when you look at the word blepes, if you remember that song on the verbs, on active voice, O-S-A, omen ete usin, O-ace, O-ace. That ace is in the second person singular, meaning that this word is coming from the active voice, second person singular. And the second person singular is translated as you are dash. So in this case, you're talking about seeing because blep means see. Blepo means see. So blepes means you are seeing. Ton is the word there, the definite article. By now you must know the definite article and how it appears, because we have looked at the definite article paradigm, the word there. We have looked at the paradigm for the word there, which is a definite article. So ton is a definite article. Anthropon is coming from the word anthropos, which means man. And if you check the ending there, which is omicron nu, that ending is in the accusative. When you check the paradigm for the nouns, it will tell you that that ending omicron nu is accusative, showing a direct object. So the translation for anthropon is man. So you have blepes, which means you are seeing, and then you have the definite article there, then you have man at the end, anthropon. So the translation is, you are seeing the man. You are seeing from blepes, there, from ton, anthropon, man. You are seeing the man, or in other words, you can translate it like, you see the man. It's still in the present tense. You are seeing the man, or you see the man. Third sentence, you have blepomen ton dulon. Blepomen ton dulon. Blepomen is having that omen ending. As we said on the first sentence, omen ending is coming from the first person plural on the active voice. Active voice, first person plural. So blepomen means we are seeing. Remember, blepo means to see. Blepomen means we are seeing. Ton is there. So blepomen, we are seeing there. Dulon is coming from the word doulos. Doulos means servant. Now, you can't translate without knowing the vocabulary. I want to repeat, you can't translate without knowing what words mean. So you need to know the vocabulary. So sentence number 3 has blepomen ton dulon, and dulon means servant. That omicron nu again is in the accusative when you check the paradigm for nouns. So blepomen ton dulon. We are seeing the servant. We are seeing the servant. Sentence number 4, blepete kai akwete ton nomon. Blepete kai akwete ton nomon. Blepete, remember, this is a verb. By looking at the ending, O-S-N, omen ete, ete, blepete. That's where it's coming from. And when you check that paradigm for verbs, Ete is from second person plural. Second person plural is translated as you are dash. Meaning, in this case, we're talking about seeing, blepo, to see. So blepete means you are seeing. Kai, the word kai, when you check the vocabulary, the word kai means end. End. If you have known the vocabulary up to now, the word kai means end. So blepete, you are seeing, and akwete. Akwete is also coming from the second person plural. Because of that, ete, O-S-N, omen ete, second person plural. And the word akuo means hear, to hear. So akwete means you are hearing from the second person plural. You are hearing. It's in the present tense, so you are hearing. So when I translate what I have, blepete kai akwete means you are seeing kai and you are hearing. You are seeing and you are hearing, or you see and you hear. Both of those translations are in the present tense. Then you have ton nomon. Ton nomon. Ton means there. That's a definite article. Nomon means law. Nomon means law, coming from the word nomos. Okay? Again, you have to refer to the noun paradigm that we have looked at to see that the case ending omicron nu is coming from the accusative. The way you translate accusative is same as the way you translate the nominative. Nomon means law. So, blepete kai akwete ton nomon means that you are seeing and you are hearing the law. You are seeing and you are hearing the law. Or you can translate it in this way, still in the present tense. You see and you hear the law. You see and you hear the law. Sentence number 5 has blepusin hoi duloi tous apostolus. Blepusin hoi duloi tous apostolus. Now, how do you translate this sentence? First of all, you need to identify the subject of the sentence. Now, Greek is not like English, where you follow word order. The way the words are lined, that's how you translate them. English has a case where the first words are the subject of the sentence, but for Greek it swaps word order. Greek does not follow word order. So you need to identify the subject of the sentence. Now, when you're looking at the cases, on the cases you have nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. And we said that all these cases are functions. The nominative, if a word is in the nominative, it shows that that's the subject of the sentence. Genitive is showing possession. Dative shows an indirect object. Accusative shows a direct object. So in this case, when you look at hoi duloi, that phrase is in the nominative. For example, duloi is having omicron iota. Omicron iota is in the nominative. When you look at the noun paradigm, you discover that omicron iota is coming from the nominative plural under the masculine gender. Nominative plural under the masculine gender. Therefore, the subject of the sentence, since hoi duloi is in the nominative, that tells us that hoi duloi is the subject of the sentence. So when we're translating, we have to start with this part because this part is the subject of the sentence. And this part, hoi, for example, is a definite article. It means there. Duloi, that ending there is in the nominative plural. It's coming from the word doulos, and doulos means servant. Since now it's douloi in the plural, it means servants. So you have the word there, which is hoi, then you have douloi, which is servants. So you have the servants. That's how you start translating. You are starting with that because that is the part that is in the nominative. And the nominative shows words that are subject of the sentence. That information is very important when you're translating. Now, you come to the word blepusin. Blepusin is a verb because that usin ending, that verb ending, when you consider the song that we learned, the paradigm that we learned, O-S-A, omen ete usin, that usin, blepusin, that's where the word is coming from. In the third person plural. In the third person plural of active voice, third person plural. So the third person plural in the active voice is translated as they are dash. So in this case, we're talking about blepo, which means to see. So the translation is they are seeing. But then we have to start with the subject of the sentence, which is hoi duloi, which means the servants. So the servants are seeing. You are not going to say the servants, they are seeing, because now when you bring it in English, English has to follow order. You can't say the servants, they are seeing. That's repetition in English. So you remove the word they to make sense in English. So for now we have the servants are seeing. Hoi duloi blepusin. The servants are seeing. Then we come to the other part. Tous apostolus. Tous, when you check the paradigm for the definite article, tous is a definite article. It means the word the. So you translate it as the word the. Apostolus is coming from the word apostolos. And apostolos means an apostle or apostle. But now apostolus is in the plural. When you check the paradigm for nouns, it's in the masculine accusative plural. So the translation is, instead of saying apostle, you're going to say apostles, because it's in the plural. So connecting everything, we have the servants are seeing the apostles. The servants are seeing the apostles. This is how you translate words in the active voice. And this is the basic way of translating words or sentences in any other tense, by knowing the paradigms and passing the words. Let's quickly look at the mid or passive. How do you translate words or phrases in the mid or passive? Let's try just two. The first one we have blepetai. The second one we have luei. Again, blepetai, you have to look at the ending, which is etai. Luomai, lue, tai. That's in the third person singular, meaning he or she or it. Instead of saying he or she or it is loosing, because we want to put it in the middle voice. Remember, when you're translating, since you're translating mid or passive, you have to choose one of them because they are sharing the same ending. But when you're translating, they are different. So the translation will be blepetai, meaning he or she or it is seeing himself. That is for the middle. If it's in the passive, you're going to say he or she or it is being seen. For luei, which is in the second person singular, if we are translating it in the middle, it's going to be you are losing yourself. When the subject is doing the action to himself, you are losing yourself. But in the passive, it's going to be you are being loosed. You are being loosed. That's how you translate some phrases or words in the middle or in the passive. This marks the end of chapter 8, but let's look at vocabulary for chapter 8. We have the word sozo. Sozo is a verb. As we said, verbs are known by their ending. On the vocabulary, they mostly end with omega. So you have sozo. Sozo means I serve. I serve. You have tote. Tote means then. Then. You have the word aion. Aion. Aion means age or eternity. Aion means age or eternity. Then you have the word alelon. Alelon. Alelon means one another. One another. And then you have the word akieros. Akieros. Akieros means high priest. Akieros means high priest. Then you have the word guner. Gunei. Gune means woman. Then you have the word dunamai. Dunamai. And dunamai means I can or I am able. Dunamai means I can or I am able. Then you have the word ethnos. Ethnos. Ethnos means nation. Ethnos means nation. This is why you get the word ethnicity. Then you have the word police. Police. Police means city. And this is why you get the word decapolis. Decapolis, meaning 10 cities, because police means city. Then you have the word te. Te. Te means end. End. It means the same word as the word kai. It means end. Then you have the word kia. Kia. Kia means hand. Kia means hand. Then we have the word ami. Ami. Ami means I am. Ami means I am. It's a verb. It means I am. And then we have the word lego. Lego. Lego means I speak, I say, or I speak. Words that begin with I are verbs. And I said words that end with omega are verbs. So lego means I speak or I say. Then we have the word basileos. Basileos. Basileos means king. Basileos means king. This is where we get the word basilea, which means kingdom. Then we have the word pistis. Pistis. Pistis means faith. Pistis means faith. Then we have the word elpis. Elpis means hope. Elpis means hope. Then we have the word force. Force means light. Photos or force means light. So it can be force or photos. The common one is force. And this is where we get the word photosynthesis. From the word photos or force, which means light. So force means light. This marks the end of chapter 8. Practice, practice, practice. God bless.